Hello and welcome to this episode 6 of our survival series. Today is quite an easy one, but it's also quite a long episode as well. We're going to be extending our base to just give us a bit more space on the first level. We're going to build a sort of L-shape aspect to the base, and then we're going to go from there and build ourselves a lift so that we can add another 2 stories to this entire base as we go forwards. The hope is that we'll be able to build, at least on the 3rd floor, a sort of proper fighter bay that can just go straight out into the rest of the world. As you can tell, I'm using the projector to get myself sorted, figure out where everything needs to be, and then we will drill it out and allow the projector system and builder and repair to build for us the majority of the work. There's a few bits and bats as we go through, so as we get to them, I'll make sure that I keep on annotating for you. If there is anything that you particularly like about the videos, do let me know. If there's anything that you'd like to see me doing, I'm doing quite a lot of high-speed work on these, and if that's not really your thing, do say. I just want to make sure that there's something worthwhile for you guys to watch, but also encourages you to get into building your own stuff as well. So we're using the same blueprint as last time. Obviously, last time we'd built 2 different wire meshes. One that was with the guide sort of panels by the side of it, and one that there was then the final particular tunnel and how we wanted it to aesthetically look without many of the little bits that we're going to add as we go through. In that regard, we're going to start off with the tunnel boring version, which has got the panels in it, and because of that I have obviously turned off build and repair, made sure that that's turned off, because if it was turned on right now, build and repair would be trying to build the entirety of this particular set of blocks that are stood in the middle of my base, and that would be particular rubbish. So we've got to turn off build and repair, get things in the right place, drill it out. Once we've drilled it out, at that point we can turn build and repair back on, and it'll all click into position. So as we start lining everything up, we recognise that the double set of gates that we've put at the back of the base, actually they're in the way of being able to make this L shape work properly, because they're sort of digging into what is actually supposed to be the tunnel itself. So in that regard, we're going to paint everything pink and let build and repair just quickly get rid of it for us. This is going to mean we're going to have to try and figure out how we can make this corner work, and how we can try and make the aesthetics of it work. Things like the glass panels and so on and so forth aren't going to work either. So quite a lot of this is going to be figuring out what looks right in this moment, and just making sure that all the angles and so on and so forth work as well. So I'm going to go at a little bit of a pace on it, but I'm going to let you see some of my figuring out here. So yeah, let's be honest, the minute I start to drill out through this, I'm going to immediately go through the wall and be looking at what is our refineries. So I may as well just straight away get this blocked up, and then there's not going to be any issue of me running a miner into the side of one of our refiners. But in that respect, I think there's also something of recognising that this becomes a possibility of as a link point for the cargo system within the rest of this L-shaped part of the base. So I'm going to keep that cargo container there, and it'll just jump itself through and into the other side for us as we go through. This is a bit of a difficult one, and trying to get a jaunty angle from the 2 poles that are going across and going into one instead is quite difficult. So I'm just going to try and figure out how I can get the angle here to be correct, and get all the different aspects of this to sit slightly nicer together with each other. It's going to take a bit of figuring out, but that's the joys of space engineers, isn't it? Is being able to figure out what you think looks good, where the angles look right, etc, etc, and then work from there. That's where we're up to. As you can see, I'm just using some of the angled blocks, the sort of 2x1 angles, so on and so forth, to try and just add a little bit of aesthetic detail, and I think that works. I think that's probably going to be okay. I also realised that actually we need to have a beam that goes from one side of this to the other, so I'm going to just put that beam back in now, and that'll be sort of the first beam of this new L side or shape we go through. And yeah, now it's time to paint all of this lot pink and get rid of this gate. It's a bit of a shame because I did quite like the sort of double gate feature, but what I'm going to do as we get to the lift is actually keep the idea of a gate at the front of the lift. So when the lift is in position on your floor, there'll be a sensor that will open up the door, like the gate door itself, and allow you access onto the lift. But when the lift moves to a different floor, it will be that sensor no longer sees the subgrid, and therefore the gates will once again shut, meaning that there's still that sort of gate aesthetic that will be the end of the base, or at least at this end of the base as we go through. I'm going to do that on all 3 floors, so as you get to a floor on the elevator, it will immediately open up the gates for you and you'll be able to go on to the next level of the base. The other thing obviously is that we've changed from having the glass here, so we need to figure out what's going to be the right particular pattern, and I'm thinking interior blocks just the whole way across. It's probably going to look best. So we're going to go with interior blocks at this one. I'm going to change those 3 interior blocks in the middle and have them continue that sort of line of slight illumination from the 3D blocking, and we'll see how that all looks in a minute. So I'm getting a bit sick and tired of continually going into the control panels to try and turn on all the build and repair and off all the build and repair. So I decided the best thing to do was to just have a control panel here that I could run the build and prepare from. And in that respect, it would also allow me to sort of use any projectors and so forth that were around. I'd already have a control panel to use it from. So I've just decided that for the entire base there will be a build and repair button. And when I slap that, it'll go, yep, build and repair's on. And when I slap it again, it'll turn it off. And that way we can just turn things on and off as we need to. So just getting that all sorted. Never particularly good with trying to get the custom script or the custom text information to look right and sit well. But hopefully it'll just work a little bit better than it looks at the moment. Just centre things up, get it all coloured over, and see where we get to from there. Nine minutes into the video, nearly 10 minutes into the video, and we're actually finally going to go and get the drill ship and begin the process of drilling out all of the material that's along here. We're going to do it in 2 stages and just best as we can figure out where the end will be. But I'm also going to do a little bit of the work around the refinery, because obviously that's already built on this run, before I get too far in, just so that when the build and repair system kicks back in, it'll do some of the work that's needed to that. It also gives me the opportunity to just think about how I'm going to get the cargo system down this particular L shape of the building as we go through as well. And what I'm going to do is run it underneath the floor rather than what we've done previously, which is run it in the ceiling. And hopefully that way we can sort of easily get to it, figure out where it needs to go within that L-shaped aspect of the building. So we'll see how that all works. Also, obviously, we're in a position where we've been using this sort of double beam system the entire way through the base. And in that regard, I need to keep that aesthetic, or I feel I need to keep that aesthetic. So, yeah, back to drilling. So by the power of editing, all the drilling has been done. It took me about 45 minutes to get that all drilled out, possibly even longer than that. I don't think you want to watch me doing 45 minutes, an hour's worth of drilling, but just as I finished, I managed to clock the back of our connector, because that's the clever kind of guy I am. So I just need to rebuild the connector before we attach the drill ship back into the base, and then we can start back up the build and repair system and get it to start building for us all of this new area of the base. While that happens, we can start thinking about how we're going to make the lift section at the back of the base as well. So as I said before, we've got two different tunnels. We've got the one with the drill guards on the side, which is just a bunch of plate catwalks, and then we've got the final one, which is able to just be all of the blocks for it, all the block work. But as I said earlier as well, I'm going to actually try and put the cargo system underneath the floor. So as it's starting to build itself up, we're actually going to build in a conveyor system that goes down and into the voxels behind or below this particular run of bricks. In that regard, I'm just going to take it from one end of this particular section all the way down the other. And as I'm doing so, I'm going to build in a build and repair system in two places, just to extend that build and repair system for the moment, but also to mean that as we get to the far end of this particular area, there is the ability still for the build and repair system to work properly. So having got that little bit of the tunnelling done, we are now at the stage of building what will be the lift shaft. As you can see, I've already got rid of the second set of gates. So now it's just about putting in a wirework frame that can be there used to symbolise where our elevator shaft is going to be. And we've already built a projector in place, and we've turned off our build and repair system. And that's just about getting everything in the right spot and then getting the drill ship out again. as always, there's a little bit of a faff trying to make sure that the projection's in the right spot, but once you've got it sorted, and once everything's been moved to exactly where you need it, it's not too hard. I've built this so that it goes down by 5 blocks, which I hope will be enough to sit all of the pistons underneath the base, so that we can go up all 3 floors, and then from there we can just start to lift the base onto the 3rd floor, as it were. So there's quite a distance between each of the floors, so it's going to be quite a long throw between each floor as far as the pistons are concerned. I think it needs like 3 pistons to get to each floor as we go along. So as you can see, drill ship back out again doing its job. However, as I start to try and do above me, I recognise that, well yeah, the drill ship's not really designed for sitting going vertical, sort of digging vertically. So we need to add some extra engines to it to manage that verticality that we need for the lift shaft itself. So trying to just make that look as nice as possible. I've turned off the projection of the lift shaft and turned build and repair back on so that it will build up these engines for me as I'm going. And I also suddenly think it would be a good idea to have a little bit of extra stability when I am up in the air, so that I don't start to fall back on myself as we go through. So I've built all of that up now, build and repair back off, and back to drilling. So start building up the piston system, and with a bit of a bang and a bounce at the bottom of there. Always nice to lose 4 health as you're trying to build in some pistons. I used a video from Splitsy from about 3 years ago to figure out how to do the piston work, so it's probably a newer way of doing it, but I will leave a link to that particular video in the description below. Always good to watch Splitsy and see what he's up to. In that regard, this works off a very similar system of just having all of the different pistons that are required for going up and down to different groups of or different floors to be grouped together. I did wonder about using the new beam blocks, but then I remembered that actually they attach on the side as well, so I'm going to have to go with using the blast door blocks, which I tried to think of a different way to do it. So if anybody knows a different way of doing it, do let me know. I'd be really interested. I then spent a very long time figuring out how this is going to work, and I'm going to let you see some of it. So I think it's important for you to be able to see how we went about some of the piston work here. But in that regard, it is a right faff building up all the different pistons and making sure everything's in the right place as we go through. I thought these interior pillars might be a good way of making sure that there's no sort of interaction between each of the pistons as you go around, but it just becomes quite complicated as to how that might work. I'm probably just a bear of very little brain, let's be honest. So yeah, this is me putting together the pistons, trying to figure out how that's all going to work. So as you can see, it's all about how you set the limits for each of the different pistons, what the minimum distance is, so that you finish all the pistons, so that one of them's just got a minimum distance that takes you to the ground floor. So we just need to get that set correctly. We're a bit high at the moment. Well, I think at this point we're going from ground floor to first floor for the first time. So in that respect, we're just seeing how far up we can go to make all of that work. So that's the first piston up. We'll try all the different pistons, put everything together, and then as you watch now, we'll just make it so that the piston systems can manage to go from ground floor to first floor, and then from first floor to second floor. And then because we'll have those two groupings, we'll be able to go from ground floor to first floor, from first floor to second floor, from second floor all the way down to ground floor, from second floor to first floor, just using the different timer block setups that are used in the different groups that are set up for the pistons within that. So whichever particular floor you're on, there'll be a call button for the lift. Whichever particular floor you want to get to from in the lift, there'll be a button for you to be able to press, and it'll just automatically work. quite painful when you think you've already figured out just how many pistons you need to suddenly realise that you need more pistons in order to get up to that third floor. In that respect, I have made the floors on this base significantly higher than they probably need to be, but in that regard it's just me trying to make sure that we're definitely okay to get all the way up, and that we're not going to knock through between any of the different aspects as we go through. So if I start to use cargo systems, I'm not going to suddenly find myself using a cargo system that means I end back up on the second floor from the third floor, so on and so forth. The other side of that is trying to figure out how we can make good use of blocks in order to produce something that looks aesthetically pleasing as you get onto the lift. There's not a massive lip, there's no issues, it's not going to crunch and grind and so on and so forth. You're not going to have sparks as you're trying to go up the lift shaft, because that just looks rubbish, let's be honest. So in that respect, I think I've got everything sorted. I think this now means that it's going to work okay as we go from one floor to another. Although, as you can see, there is a slight lip there that I will get rid of in just a second, just by taking it down another mil, just as the sort of gentle shiftings of pistons has occurred. So we'll see how it all goes. So now, of course, that we've got all of the pistons correctly levelled and made sure that the groupings are done correctly, it's now time to build ourselves up our elevator car. So I've decided that I want a reasonably open car. It'd be nice to have some sofas in it, partially because I can then sit on one and use that to get a bit of energy back while I'm going up to a different floor. But also I'd like to have something that looks like a nice aesthetic space. So I'm going with the idea of putting in these planter blocks, really so that I can put windows on the back of them, and therefore, although I'm going to use the inverted flat windows, it'll mean that you can just about see into the elevator shaft as you're going up it. But because it'll be the inverted ones, they'll be slightly darkened on the inside, which will mean that it's not like looking through the window, it'll be looking through the window and it just being darkened off. I think it looks aesthetically a little bit more pleasing because of that, so on and so forth. So I'm going to get that sorted, and then we're nearly done. So with the car finished, I've decided to put glass around the outside on each of the different levels as well, so that as the car comes to it, you can't actually get into the elevator shaft itself from through the gate. You have to go into the lift. That's the only thing that's available to you. I just think it makes it look a bit nicer. That's the end of this video. So we've built this amazing elevator shaft that goes up 3 floors. We've built an extra extension to the base as well on the other side. Thanks for watching. See you soon.